hope you've been enjoying the whole experience of working through this stash dive knit along. At this point, it is possibly my favorite part because we get to actually pull it all together and it's starting to look a lot more like a sweater. Because of course we began with sizing, figuring out gauge, all of the stuff that you need to get started with it. Then we did the back, the upper back first of all, which doesn't really look like much because it's just a rectangle with some short rows. Last week we took a look at the front of it where we picked up stitches and did the shaping for the front of the neck. So now when I finish that, which is where I'm at with this, what you end up with is a piece that looks like this. So it's still not fitted, more like a poncho because you've got a hole for the head, so you get to kind of try it on. But the next part is obviously going to be a lot more exciting because we're moving on to the body and you get to fit it and make a little bit more decisions. But I would encourage you at this point to just try this on. Put on, even if you don't have a needle that's long enough, you can just slide it onto a barber cord or a spare needle or just a needle that's a little bit longer. Try it on, make sure you like the neck opening. Now remember the last time I was showing you how my gauge had gotten a little wider and I decided that I wanted a narrower neckline. I didn't want the really big one the last time because I didn't really want to put much of an edging on here. So this time round what I did is I brought it in 4 stitches on each side, so effectively like about 1.5 inches narrower than what it had been because of my stretched gauge. And for the front of it, I had the straight section where it was just the short rows, and then I immediately began shaping the neck and doing the increases in each side. And you can see what that means is it pulls up the neckline up to here as opposed to all the way down here, where on that one I had a section where I did it straight before I started doing those neck increases after I did the short rows. So that means that I've got kind of a more fitted neckline up here. And to end this, you could possibly leave it as it is. The only place that I'll probably need something in the back of it is still, let me turn this around, the back is still rolling up here. But I might possibly block it first of all, see if that's going to stop rolling. Otherwise, just even like an I-cord bind off or maybe a crochet chain around the edge might be enough to just give that little edging on it. But that's the neck decision and figuring out whether you like it or not. Next one is taking a look at your armholes, putting it on. And in this particular case, because we're not doing any cast on stitches, we're just leaving a hole for our arms that where we're going to pick up the sleeve afterwards. So when you try it on, you can lay it out, make sure like even block it, steam block it so you get the width, and then just pull the 2 sides of this together. Maybe even put a safety pin so that it's kind of attached on each side and attach it over here and put it on your body and decide, is that the size that you want? And this is a really easy place to make that adjustment, because if you're like, it feels a little bit snug or it's too big, which either direction doesn't make any difference. If it's too snug, add a few extra rows in the front and a few extra rows in the back. If it is too big, then go ahead and rip out a few rows on the front and on the back. Most important thing is you want to reach the same length on the front and on the back. So you'll go ahead and find the middle of this seam here and then kind of block it, even it out a little bit so that it's lying down flat, and then check that you've got the same length on the front and on the back there. So once you've done that, then the next step we'll be looking at is we're going to just join in the round. So just knitting the front, knitting the back, joining it in the round, possibly putting in a marker on each side, because that will allow you, if you do want to do any shaping for the body, you know exactly where the side seams are without any difficulty. I'm probably just going to keep mine straight down. So you can see with the straight down, when it's oversized like this, it's going to just have a lot of flow, a lot of drape. The sides are going to come down naturally further than the middle of it, just by virtue of the fact that it's hanging off the side of the body. And then I'm going to finish it either leaving it as a roll edge or possibly adding in a little bit of garter or an I-cord edging. So I'm going to go through a few different bind off options. We'll kind of look at an I-cord bind off, Icelandic bind off, stretchy bind off, or elastic bind off, because when you're doing something top down, if the rest of it is flowy and very stretchy, You probably don't want a very tight edging unless that's a design decision you're going for, in which case you'd probably have done the ribbing a bit tighter and the whole thing would be snugger. For me, it's all about kind of flow and a bit of raw, unfinished edging to a certain extent. So I'll kind of talk through and show all those different possible options, and I don't know yet what I'm going to decide to do. I'll have to figure it out as I get there. So you're kind of going to be along for the ride with me on this one. So I have matched the length of the front to the length of the back now, and it is time to get joining. So what we'll be doing is we'll be joining here to here along the left side of the body, and the same over this side from here to here. I went ahead and I've just knit the front, so I'm all ready in theory to work and join the two like this. Of course, all of these are on waste yarn, so because I want to just be able to knit continuously around, what I'm going to do now is just slip these stitches from the waste yarn onto my needle across like this. So once I've got those on across here, I'll just be able to knit all the way around. I would suggest as well having a couple of stitch markers so that you're able to pop in the kind of the start of your round, and also the side marker in case you want to make any changes there. So I'll just go ahead and do this right now, so I'll show you where we're going with this. So I've now got those back stitches all on my needle, so I'm going to join this in. So when you're doing two sides that from side to side and you're joining in the round, you're literally just join them up like this, and then to keep stockinette stitch going, you just keep knitting, so there's no purl rounds anymore, purl stitches I should say. Now you'll have a tail of yarn over here that you'll want to join in, and usually the way I like to do that is I lift it over and under as I'm working. So I'll show you how I do that. So first of all, I'm going to grab a marker here to mark the side seam, because I've knit the front, side seam, knit the back, and then the start of my round will be on the other side. I'm going to knit with the yarn on this side, knit that first stitch here, and see it's very loose. So I'm going to do then is snug this up, grab that tail. So as I'm going to lift the next one, lift the tail over. So as you're knitting it, it is lifted up. Then drop it down when you're knitting the next one. So anyone who has done trapping floats with color work, this is the same technique, but it's with the yarn tail. So you're going to lift this up over and then drop that down, lift it up over, drop it down. I'll usually just do it for 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, doesn't really matter, just long enough that those stitches feel nice and snug now. And then at that point, what you're going to do is just join in the round like I've done and continue knitting for as long as you want. I'm not doing any shaping in my body because I think that it works just fine like this. If you are, you can do it on each side of the side seam. So if you're doing decreases, if you're trying to bring it down, you can do a decrease where like the right leaning decrease, which would be on this side, is going to be knit 2 together. Left leaning would be an SSK. So you can do those kind of maybe a couple of stitches out each side, just periodically going down. If you want to do an A-line increase, you'll do the opposite. You'll take a couple of stitches out this side and maybe do a make one right over here and a make one left over there. But that's kind of all there is to it. But that really, putting those in, you're not only going to do that if you're going to increase the length of the body. If you're planning on doing a shorter body, I think straight is going to work just fine. And just keep trying it on as you're going. So when you want to try it on at this stage, because it's in the round and you can see the needle size is a little bit shorter. So what trying on would involve is grabbing a second needle, grabbing a Barber cord, where I think I've got a Barber cord over here that I can show you. It would be, yeah, this is what a Barber cord is. So it's just a little silicone tube where you can pop it on and slip the stitches off and then stretch it out, and then when you're finished you can put this back on and move it over. So this is really handy and very, very fast if you want to try it on, because you can move half the stitches out and stretch them off. But trying it on is ideal for this. It's really important, and that's how you're going to get a really good fit for yourself. If you've got something that kind of squishes up a bit or kind of curls, then also make sure to get maybe a steamer or steam block, or even spray with water to kind of stretch and smooth those stitches out to make sure that you're getting an accurate length. The other thing that you're going to want to think about with this is when you're working in the round, you'll have to join new yarns, and there isn't necessarily going to be a nice easy place of doing it. I'm not going to demo it here, but we will put a link in on how you do can join the two together. And my preference for this and what I'm going to be doing will be a Russian join, where you just get a needle, you fold it in on itself like this, then you get the tail of the other one, loop it through and fold that in. So basically you'll have a loop of each yarn over like this, and fold each one in and just thread it down inside all the way down. So you've got a very secure piece like this. You can leave the tail of it out if you want, that you can trim later, or you can weave it all the way down so it's very well fastened. But for a plant fiber, that's quite a useful way of actually joining a new yarn. And other than that, I'm just kind of continue on, and I'll take a look at different options for the edging when I reach there. I'm working along on my body, and you can see I've gone this far. This is my underarm, so that's where I kind of keep an eye on how far I've gone down. And I still got plenty of this yarn left, but I think I want to take advantage of this second color I've got, so I'm going to start introducing it. So the way I would usually do that in order to blend ones in is you're going to do single rounds of each of them. Now, you can obviously do it where you change them all in the same spot, but if you've done that before, when it's in the round, you'll know that what you get is you end up getting a seam line where one crosses over each other, and it tends to be quite a rigid part where it won't stretch, and it's not really nice in a seamless garment. So what I discovered a few years ago was something called helical stripes. And it works only in the round. Let me find the tail end of this. And what you're going to do is you knit one round with one color, and then you come up with a second color. And when you reach 3 stitches before the previous color, you stop, slip these, and then start working with the other one. And then the next time you've got your other yarn will be stopped here. You'll stop 3 times sooner, and you'll go back over here. So you keep stepping back 3 times with each, slipping the color, and then starting with the previous one. And what that actually does is it's continually spiraling where you're changing the color, so there's never any divide. So it's extremely smooth, and you can't see it because you're already working in a helical spiral going up with this, because every round you're stacking one on top of each other, so it's just spiraling around. You're just formalizing it. So when you start off, I'm just going to begin with the next yarn again like this, just dropping the other one down, picking this up. To start a new yarn, when I start working with it, I will initially knit a couple of stitches. Then what I tend to do, so it's going to hang on, is I kind of weave the first couple of stitches in as I go. So lift the tail, this is the tail of my yarn. I'm going to lift the tail over as I knit one stitch, and then when you finish that, drop it down and knit the next one. So if you have ever done weaving in floats in the back of color work, this is the same thing. So I lift my yarn over, drop it down, keep it down for the next one. So it's every second stitch, 1 stitch up, 1 stitch down. I don't know if I'm brave enough to try it in this hand. if I'm doing my yarn in this hand and I'm going to go and use the next one. In theory, I should be able to, let me grab the tail, hold the tail up and over. If you keep the tail up there, so bring that over so that it's on top, but when you pull it through, it's trapped over. So you can do the same thing, just weaving it up and down. You may need to move your hands around a little bit more with the maneuvering. So I'm going to go work my way around here, and then when I come back on the other side, I'll be knitting with the second color. I can see very clearly where my tail is here, so I'd stop here 3 stitches before I reach this one, drop that yarn down, what color? The gray, the dark gray, slip the 3 knit stitches until I reach the place where this is, and then start working with this. And at that point, my other gray will be over here. So when I come around the next time, I'll stop 3 stitches before this one, slip the stitches, and then working in my gray. So you'll keep working that helical stripes all the way around. I will, when I come around after I've got a few done, I'll show you what that looks like, and I'll just join in and we'll take a look. But yeah, for now I'm just going to do a few rounds. You start seeing what those single stripes work, what they look like. So I'll do a kind of a couple of inches with the two striping like this, then I'll drop out my green and I'll just move into this, but that will give you kind of a blending or a fading in between from one to another, but done in a very soft way really. I've been working away on my helical stripes here now, and you can see the first several rows worked. It's very subtle because there's only a single row of each color. And over here you can see where it started. I'm now up to almost at where I had done the green color. The yarn is over here and you can see there's 4 stitches left here, and I'm going to knit to that last 3 stitches so that I can then start with the green color. So that means I've only got 1 more stitch left to work in gray right here. And then I'll slip these 3 stitches purlwise, drop the color, the gray color down, and then snug up my green to get started. You can see this is a linen yarn and it's going to be a little bit rougher to work with and stiffer, so it is important to snug it up so that you are going to get a nice even tension with those stitches. So then all I do after I've slipped them is I begin working in that other color, and I'll just keep doing that all the way around. I'll work around. You can see here, this is where I started, and as you go around and you move 3 stitches each time, you're not going to be able to see a continuous spot where you've got a join as you go up. It'll just keep moving back over. Here at the start is the only spot where you're going to have a bit of a blip, but you can straighten that up as you go along. So this is a really great way as you work along to be able to change between different colors. So I'm going to do a few more inches of the helical stripes and then I'll transfer to the other color. But this means that you can actually keep working as many different color changes as you want and use the helical stripes to be able to blend seamlessly between one and another. I've been knitting my way through the body and I wanted to show you the progress to kind of give you an idea of how useful it is to try the sweater on as you go. So you can see that I'm using Barber cord. I slipped about half of the stitches on, and you can probably also see that even though this is considerably bigger than my body, particularly with the summer top, how nicely it drapes, that it sits on, it lies nice and smoothly. Because of the edge of this, you can't really see the true length yet, so usually I'll just kind of pull the edge down to get a feel for the length. Now this is kind of getting close to the length of the original. Now also, see what I'm wearing here, the fact that I'm wearing a t-shirt underneath that's a lot longer, it's going to make it look very short. So if you imagine that perhaps you've got a shorter top on or a dress underneath, it is going to look a little different. So you might think about how you're going to wear it, what you're going to put it over. I am going to work, I've got a little bit yarn left, so I'm going to add a small bit more length to this, but I'm not going to make it terribly long. So I'll probably add maybe another inch or an inch and a half to the length, and then I'm going to figure out my edging. So the edging, the kind of decisions you want to make are, do you want to keep it like you've got here, kind of very open, unfinished look to it, in which case you might just do a standard bind off and block it so it lies a little bit flatter. I might give a try at an I-cord bind off to see what that looks like, and I will show you how you work that on it. You could do a ribbing like I've done an edge. You might decide to do a few rounds of garter stitch and then do your I-cord edging. There's all sorts of edging you can try out, but it depends on the overall finished feel you're going to go with. And the main thing I tell you in relation to that is keep it cohesive. So if you want kind of casual and very relaxed, then just stick with that all the way through and have kind of raw edges, nothing too finished as such. Whereas if you're going to go for kind of a slicker finish where you want to put in, very neat edges here, maybe ribbing here, then you may want to stick with ribbing in the bottom here. So those are the kind of decisions you might want to take a look at. And I'll have a quick look at just some edging options from different samples with you now as well, so you can see what's going on. I am now at the part of the body where I'm going to go and just do my edging. And I've got lots of choices open to me as to what I'm going to do. So I'm going to kind of just pull up a few different options here. This was what I did on the very first one. Because I had quite flimsy singles yarn going here, on the edging I actually went with ribbing to pull it in, but I made it thicker. So I actually held the mohair with it and did kind of very kind of sturdy edging, knit fairly tightly, but with the mohair and the singles held together. So that kind of matched with all of the rest of the edging I had done. So I did this for up here, and I did it for the cuff, so that kind of it brought it all together quite cohesively. Another possible option for the edging on this one that I could do would be what I've done here, which is there's just a few rows in garter stitch, just doing knit and purl all the way around, and then finishing with this I-cord bind off. My feeling though with this, because linen for me has got quite a raw feel to it, and it's very rough and ready and just kind of just a more casual feel, I think I might actually just do a I-cord bind off the whole way around. So if you haven't done that before, you can do any number of stitches you want. And all you're going to do is, like, the 3 stitches would be fairly typical for an I-cord bind off. You could do 2 stitches, you could do 4 if you wanted a bigger one, but you just start whatever number you want. You do a cable cast on for that to start with. So you just go in between these 2 stitches, pop this one up, go in between the 2 stitches, pull this one up, and in between the 2 stitches and pull this one up. So that's the 3 stitches for the I-cord. And then you will just go knit the first 2 stitches, and then you do a slip, slip and knit with the 3rd I-cord and this one, and knit those 2 together through the back loops. So that's all there is with the I-cord. Then when you've done this, you pull all of these back over. Let me do this slowly. And you do the same thing again. So you knit the first 2 and you do a slip, slip and knit for the 3rd one. Doesn't look like anything for a while. But I do find that it creates just kind of a more finished, polished edge along the end, and I think that might work well here. If it doesn't and I end up changing, I will come back when I start my sleeves and I'll let you know about what I ultimately end up deciding to do. But for now, that is where I think I'm going to go with this.